From Oxbow to Oslo, New York to New Westminster, we're global, baby, covering what matters to you. Let us know in the comments right now. Welcome to another episode of The Rod Pedersen Show.
Thank you very much, Rick Regan. Good morning, Canada. Welcome to The Rod Pedersen Show. And a hearty hello to Canadian sports fans around the world. It is Tuesday, March the 31st. Or as I saw on Twitter yesterday, somebody said, it's March 275th. I'm the host, Rod Pedersen. He's the co-host, Darren Dupont. How you doing, Dupes?
Doing well.
We're coming to you out of the bunker here in Western Canada, where the temperatures plunged a little bit too.
Oh, yeah.
Back down to around zero, as our American friends say. The rapidly expanding bunker, I might add. What the hell?
Well, expanding we're getting some stuff done.
Renovations. Do you want to put the camera on producer Clark and what's behind him, Jordan? If we don't mind, for those watching on Facebook Live today and soon to be Game Plus TV, can you see that? Can you? That's a full. Well, it's not a full wall. It's a real wall that's going up. So we're building a wall, and Paul's paying for it.
He's going to pay for it.
The guys like that, yeah. Welcome. It's hour one of the program today. We've got our Elite 8 show topics coming up in moments. I'm excited about the program today because a guy that I've known for a very long time going to be with us, Derek Morris, longtime NHLer, former Regina Pat. Hockey fans will remember him, for sure Calgary Flames fans. Well, he was in the NHL at 18, Darren.
Yeah.
First round pick. Derek Morris will be with us from Arizona. Is that where you got him from, Clark? I think he's in Arizona. I'm going to chat some NHL, what life's like amid the sports apocalypse in Arizona right now. I'm interested to know. Jordan Eberle's going to be checking in from Long Island. Shortly before the sports pause, the pandemic, he and his wife welcomed their first.
That's exciting.
So, from a family perspective, good timing for Ebbs. Mm-hmm. And he'll be with us from Long Island. And from TSN 1290 Winnipeg, where we really want to be on the air, right? We want TSN 1290 Winnipeg to pick us up. I'm just going to be very shameless about it. Andrew Pedersen, who goes by the name Hustler, will be with us later on to hear how the pandemic is affecting the Manitoba capital. How are you this morning, Dupes?
I'm doing really good.
I like the Rush lacrosse top you got on there. I like it.
Pulled it out. I mean, I've been very much in the athletic wear the whole time. The track pants every day and the comfortable shirts and stuff.
Stop hitting the microphone.
Why not, right?
Act like your hands are nailed to the arm of the chair.
That's impossible.
No, it's actually not, because I do it all the time.
I'll try.
Hey, are you ready to go with the Elite 8 show topics of the program today? Number one, and I called this up on my laptop because I wanted to make sure I had it right. Flipped on ESPN first thing this morning, and the first thing I see from Adam Schefter is that the NFL's chief medical officer is optimistic of a full season in the National Football League. Here's what it is. You just went, You rolled your eyes. Are you not believing this?
I don't know if I believe it yet or not, but I wonder how much that message comes from the league, or if it's just one guy that got interviewed. Well,
he's a pretty big deal. He's not just a Morley boy.
But it's a little bit more of the NFL's. We're not really part of the pandemic. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
The NFL has chosen not to participate in the pandemic.
Yeah, and you see a lot of other organizations that would hear somebody within their organization say something like that, and they would roll their eyes, and they would kind of be, now we're going to get ripped on for this because we want to make sure we're taking care of the people. But the NFL doesn't seem to care, and they're doing pretty well.
Let me read this. NFL Players Association Medical Director Tom Mayer is optimistic the 2020 season will take place. However, the union and the NFL will know a lot more in late May or early June about whether playing this season is viable. Mayer discussed the coronavirus pandemic and its impact on the NFL during an appearance on Adam Schefter's podcast. The NFLPA has created a COVID-19 brain trust that includes members from Harvard, Duke, Johns Hopkins, the CDC, the White House, the State Department, and the office of Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. So there was some pretty good news when I flipped on my television this morning. First thing that I saw. Point two, ESPN immediately went to Sean Payton in his kitchen having coffee. They interviewed him on Get Up this morning and his take on that. And when you do the math, April, May, June, July, technically that's 4 months away. Technically, when they kick off in September, you could see this happening. And I guess my interesting thing about Sean Payton sitting there, working from home, having coffee like everybody else at this hour, really.
Yep.
I've long said, particularly since I got into the recovery business, that we are all connected in the world. And people say, oh, Rod, that's flaky. It's not true. What's going on right now shows that we are all connected.
Big time. Big time. And we're all in the same circumstance. I mean, you think about if you're sitting at home right now, at your kitchen or your office or wherever you're set up, and if you're actually doing some work, you're in the exact same situation that Sean Payton's in.
Right.
The head coach of the New Orleans Saints. We are all connected in the same way. Absolutely.
So that was just proof of that. And Payton's point, by the way, on if they go immediately to training camp, clearly there's no OTAs, organized team activities in the National Football League. But if they go straight to training camp, he goes, it wouldn't be a first. Happened in 2011. We had a player lockout. And he goes, I wouldn't have a problem with it. He goes, the biggest problem would be with teams that have new coaching staffs. But they've been rolling in New Orleans under Payton for a long time. He's not concerned. He's just sitting back, biting his lip. Point 3 of our Elite 8 show topics here in the rollout for Flooring Super Stories. How does that relate to the CFL? I mean, you're talking about training camp in July for the NFL versus May 17th in the CFL. We've had 24 hours since the Canadian Football League announced that they're postponing training camps. Interesting fallout from that. Some fans have literally said, I want to panic. I'm starting to panic. Well, that's a choice. But in the last 24 hours since that announcement, what have you thought or heard with regards to the CFL's announcement that way?
You know what? I think people are a little bit concerned. They're starting to think about season tickets. You're hearing a lot about the teams. If they're only going to be half full stadiums and people forget about the league, it's really going to hurt revenues. But I don't think, as a general population and as one group, that we're really concerned yet because it's not close enough. It's not real enough yet. If it's May and we're supposed to be planning our summer days around going to training camp and doing some things, our spring days, and it's not happening, that becomes a problem. Right? If we can't go to the lake, if we can't do those things, it's going to become real. Right now, I mean, the temperatures are going below zero. There's a lot of the country that's getting snow today, or there's a lot, parts that are getting snow. It's not real enough yet, but I think in the back of people's minds, they're a little concerned.
I'll tell you what, if this pandemic isn't real enough to you yet, consider yourself damn lucky. And I'm getting that to more further points here in the Elite 8. Point 4, I wrote my book review this morning on the Baltimore Stallions, The Brief, Brilliant History. Over 3 days, I read that book. Obviously, I fell in love with it. It transported me mentally to Baltimore in the early 90s. But let me ask you this. We had a little bit of a talk here in our pre-show meeting with Clark and yourself. And how old are you, Ryan? 37. He's a little older than you two, but not much. Do you care about CFL history and the Stallions specifically?
I love it.
And the U.S. expansion. I just wondered if I am alone here.
As an 87 born, and the Stallions is my first memory of the CFL.
Really?
That Grey Cup in 95. Now, I have more, like earlier little bits and pieces. I remember watching Danny McManus. The Flutie brothers were two of my favorites as a kid. But I was when you're a kid, you're not watching even the full games. You don't have that attention span. But that game is the first one I remember. I have it on a VHS somewhere because we had a Grey Cup party. My parents did at the house. And that 95 Grey Cup, Calgary and Baltimore. That's my first real early memory of the league. So
okay.
I like it.
I'm just glad to know that I'm not alone in my nerdism for CFL history, because there would be no CFL currently if it wasn't for what these men and women did back in the day. And I just wondered if it was only me.
And it comes back down to when we talk about marketing players and things like that. I go back and I'm looking, and I know that Baltimore won that Grey Cup over Calgary, and Calgary had some wins, and then Toronto when Doug Flutie was there. But I don't remember which teams were good and which teams were bad. I remember Mike Pringle, and I remember Tracy Ham, and I remember the Fluties, and I remember Dave Sapunja. I mean, you remember the names, the stars, right? You don't really remember how the teams were up and down all the time.
Well,
sometimes you do. A lot of people do, sure, but
sure. It's I don't think he minds me outing him, but John Ryan's brother, Steve, super cool guy, very opinionated. He played for the Rams, too. And when I put a comment on Instagram about the Ravens, the Stallions, Steve wrote me and said, yeah, pretty great when you don't have to play with Canadians, which they didn't do because American antitrust law wouldn't allow them to observe the ratio. So these were 100% Americans on the team. And so 25 years later, some people haven't forgotten. So that's the funny thing. And I will just say this about the 95 Grey Cup. Here's the crappy part of it. Because I was with the Pats at the time, we had to leave. I think we rolled out of town around Thursday and went into Alberta for a road trip. So I wasn't there for the game. I was there for the start of the week, but gone for the game. I wasn't at the game. I would have loved to have been at the game. But I remember that was the start of the Ryderville gigantic site. I believe it was the Agribition building that they put it in that housed 10,000 people.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? But up until then, it had just kind of been a small thing in a ballroom at a hotel, a Grey Cup. 1995 Grey Cup was Ryderville.
And that was it.
Yeah, that's where it started, as I recall.
That's cool. That's cool. And as you said that about the American-Canadian thing, that got me thinking, too. We fall in love with the game as kids, right? Kids don't care about that stuff. As a kid, you don't even know Canadian-American ratio, where this guy came from, the politics. You don't even care about that. All you do is watch the game, fall in love with the players, and you don't care about that till you're an adult.
As I got near the end of the book, I kind of slowed down because I'm like, I don't want this to end. Sort of like Tiger King, as I was watching it last night with Mrs. Pedersen, and we got to the last episode, and she said, might as well watch it. I said, no, we got to save this to tomorrow. I don't want Tiger King to end.
That's where I'm at, too.
Same thing. Moving on with regards to if the pandemic isn't real yet, consider yourself, as my mom would say, GD lucky. Because layoffs announced by the Alouettes first yesterday, then the Stampeders, Flames, and Oilers. It's real to them and real to the healthcare professionals and the frontline workers and all that. So again, if it doesn't seem real, consider yourself lucky. Point 6. So the NHL players are staging conference calls with only one per team per division. I like the idea in theory, but we're not getting a lot out of it. I don't know if you followed. I read the article yesterday where they interviewed Brady Tkachuk, Zdeno Chara. Can't remember who else was all on the conference call. It was video conference call. They talked about how they're staying busy, which, by the way, every athlete's the same. Working out at home, period. That's it. Good time for Peloton to launch their stationary bike and mobile remote training that way. But I mean, it's kind of silly, Darren. It was a 35-minute conference call with selected NHL players. The NHL had to vet the questions ahead of time, so it wasn't like this, interactive with our viewers like that. And one of the questions was, who's the player that you would least like to be quarantined beside? Well, what do you think the conversation devolved into?
Brad Marchand is the only guy I can think of because he's going to go around licking everybody.
No, it wasn't that. It was that's funny. But Zdeno Chara said he would least like to be with Tuukka Rask because his farts smell too bad. And I'm like, here we go. Hockey players, it didn't. We're not going to touch on anything too serious here.
Or too great. It's tough because you can't control moments.
No,
you can't control. It's like trying to forecast viral content or plan it, or you get to choose what goes viral and what people attach themselves to. No, it's tough because you want to vet the questions. You don't want players to say anything or commit to anything, in terms of we're going to play, we're not going to play, we hate this, we like this, or you want to save them from themselves. But if you want to really promote the game, then you got to let the players be free. And if you do one conference call, everybody's getting the same scoop. It's so watered down. When you have, players on this show, you get real comments, real conversations. And then when they go on the next show,
it's a different thing.
They get something that we didn't get. And that's what makes it great and keeps everybody, with great content and keeps the league moving.
Right.
But everybody wants to control the narrative right now.
Don't they?
They just want to control the narrative. And that's the scariest thing because it's so darn scary to just put yourself out there and not be in control of the situation. But you got to take a chance.
It's the world we live in with lawsuits and so forth, afraid of what somebody's going to say.
Yeah.
But to have 4 predetermined interview guests and have all the questions asked vetted ahead of time is like hunting in the zoo.
Yeah.
It's not much of a challenge.
Yeah.
Back to Joe Exotic. Point 7, just to say that we got back to the Stanley Cup playoffs, and who knows where this is going. There's a lot of theories and columns going around as to how flattened the curve is a hoax and so forth. I'm not saying I believe it or I don't, but let's just be positive and say that they're going to be back on the ice here this spring. This was just in my own mind. If they went to a best-of-3 series, best-of-3 all the way, would you... Like, I would go along with that.
Oh, yeah.
You would? You don't even need to.
Of course.
Okay.
It'd be awesome.
Would you guys?
Yes.
Clark and Ryan both. Yes. Everybody said, yeah, just get on the ice, boys.
Oh, it'd be.
Maybe that would be the good poll question today. Would you?
Imagine how amazing it would be when you step on the ice and it's a best-of-3. It'd be like Game 7 every night.
Right.
Oh, it'd be so good.
Okay.
It'd be so good as a one-off. It'd be so great.
I thought that would be an unpopular question, actually. Best-of-3. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Best of 7's great because, it lasts and it is really good. But a best-of-3, I mean, everything means so much more.
We have a small technical issue that nobody would know but us, and that is that the comments that come in that we normally see on our second video wall here, and if you watch my Instagram story from time to time, I'll do a behind-the-scenes tour so you see what I see. I don't see those comments coming in, so I've had to call it up on my laptop here. And there was a comment come in from Chris Hill, who used to live across the street from us in Milestone, Saskatchewan, the Hill family. He wrote me from Newfoundland. He's watching today, and he goes, I'm starting to get concerned. I've booked Grey Cup tickets. I've booked playoff tickets, hotels. This goes back to way back when we started this. If I may just say, as a mental health professional and recovery coach, you have no control over that. This isn't just to Chris. This is to everybody. Sit tight. Keep busy. Don't get caught up in the what ifs, the what ifs, the what ifs. Live in the now. That's it. Because Chris, and any of you that are starting to worry about these things, how long ago was it that I was on here saying, just quoting the chief medical officer of ABC, Dr. Jennifer Ashton, saying, self-assess, stick to your routine, inject humor if you can, and reach out to people. That hasn't changed. As a matter of fact, it's probably more important now than it was 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Fair?
Fair. It is.
I get that you're concerned about the flights and the hotels and the Grey Cup, but nobody knows. So to sit there, to see people are sitting at home, their minds are racing and wandering, causes panic. Well, anxiety, obviously.
It does. And, one of the things that, in my world, and this, like, I don't take vacations.
Your life's a vacation. What would you take a vacation from?
Exactly. I'm doing everything I want to do on a daily basis. But, it's not unnatural for me to want to go and spend a few days in Vegas or go to a warm destination and sit on the beach. And so you start thinking about that. And for me, that happens kind of in the springtime and maybe in the summer, you want to get away. And I was watching, actually, the Tiger King, and they do the shot over top of Vegas because they're talking about the other guy.
Looks great, doesn't it?
Jeff, yeah, it looks great. I'm like, I can't wait to go to Vegas. And I'm sitting there being like, wait a second. It's not happening anytime soon. Stop thinking about it because you're just going to be disappointed. And you just can't think about that stuff because you're just going to drive yourself crazy.
You're right. You're right. But you do got to think about something, which reminds me, so to point 8 of the Elite 8 show topics today, a very simple question here. What are you watching? What are people doing to fill time? I just got a notification from The Athletic. That's why I turned my phone upside down, because I'm such a squirrel. I get a notification, all of a sudden my mind goes off,
Yep.
From The Athletic. This is what I'm paying my subscription for. What are the best NHL players for every jersey number? Number 16, Marcel Dion or Brett Hull. Number 91, Fedorov, Tavares, or Stamkos. This is just designed to keep people busy, obviously. Trump would call it fake news. In my mind, that's my definition of fake news. Creating news to have content. I know a lot of people in the journalism industry have another definition of fake news, but that's mine. Just creating content for the sake of creating content because you have to create content. Fair?
Fair.
And furthermore, to the question of what are you watching, Clark said nostalgia is big. People are really going back. We've been asking yesterday, what was your favorite stadium you've ever been in? The clip had 5,000 views. Dozens upon dozens of comments from people. So they're enjoying that. But as far as filling time on the networks for old games, I'll say this. I turned on a game the other day, and it was the NFC Championship, Saints-Rams, and just the of the crowd. My heart sank immediately. It wasn't about the players on the field. It wasn't about who the announcers were or even what channel it was on. It was just the crowd. I miss it. And I think we all miss the roar of the crowd.
Yeah.
But I didn't stay on it for very long. I watched a clip of the Islanders-Oilers the other day, and I can only watch up to, I can't remember who I was talking to. Said I can only watch up to a certain point, probably mid to late 80s, and I don't care about the NHL in the 90s and the 2000s. I'm sorry. The old games aren't doing it for me. Maybe briefly to watch an inning of the Jays and the A's. That's it. I know who won.
That's it. There's two that I would maybe go back to. I go back and watch, for me, because it's just my childhood, the 02 Olympics. I've got it on a DVD. Go back and watch the gold medal game. Those are my two broadcasting icons.
Yeah.
And that's the game and all my favorite players. So I do. And that's one I can sit and watch even though I know who wins. But I'm sitting there being like, maybe I'll go watch that whole tournament. I'm like, well, I know every game that happens. Maybe I'll go watch an old Leafs Senators playoff series. It's great, good hockey, but I know who wins in the end. It's just you can't get me to sit down and stay still for that long when I know what happens.
What this thing's doing, it's exposing a lot of people in a lot of ways too. We talked about that before the show. But from a broadcast perspective, watching John Madden call a Super Bowl color with Pat Summerall. And John Madden, they're starting their game-winning drive from their own 20-yard line. Madden's like, this is what the coach is thinking here. Nobody's saying that anymore.
Nope.
In color. And I'm not going to go through who the color guys are, but when's the last time you had a coach in the booth? John Gruden, and he was the best.
And he was really good, and he did it in
not even around anymore.
He did it in his own way. But it goes to show you, these guys, you can't just pluck broadcasters from anywhere and just throw them in.
No.
It's such a...
But they're doing it. But everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing it, but it comes down, like, can you just pluck a center iceman and make him your franchise center iceman? You're going to play on the first line in the power play because we got a great system. We got a great system, and this team is so good that you're just going to score 30 goals. No, you need to have good players. That's what makes a good team, and everybody working together. But, yeah, it's the broadcasters, I mean, good ones are good. Romo, people will say Romo's doing that, but he's not doing it from the coach's point of view.
Right.
He's doing it from the player's point of view.
Which is cool, too. But I'm just saying there's a really big difference. There's a really big difference in the way Madden did it.
Huge.
And the way everybody's doing it now.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to go through some of the comments here. You know what? We'll just pause and continue this after. Jack Fulton's watching from Calgary, and I appreciate, Jack, your unwavering support of this. He says, stay away from stinking thinking. As a man thinks, so he shall be. Great advice, Rod. So thank you. I mean, I get where people are going, and we're trying to provide a distraction here on a daily basis and a little bit of entertainment. But if I can help along the way, too, because I've been getting asked by a lot of people, how you doing, Rod? I'm doing fine. Frankly, I went through my crisis or crises well in advance of this. So if I can be of any service to anybody, which I am to a lot of people individually, but if it's on this show, so be it. This has been the Rollout for Flooring Superstore. On the way today, NHLers Derek Morris and Jordan Eberle. And from TSN 1290 Winnipeg, Andrew Pedersen. You may know him better as Hustler. We'll be back in a moment. It's the Rod Pedersen Show on Facebook Live. Coming soon to Game Plus TV Network and listen live at rodpedersen.com.
You're watching Rod Pedersen on demand. For more of the Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.